Hello world, my name is Kat, and this is my deconversion story. Yeah, this is like the 5th or 6th time I've tried to record this. I think I'm being a little over-perfectionistic about it, but you want to tell your life story right, you know? So, anyway, my childhood. I was raised in Texas. I was born and raised in Texas, so I guess it won't surprise anyone when I say that I was raised in a very Protestant Christian household. My family is actually fairly moderate, but I was like a moderate family going to a kind of extreme church, so that was kind of my situation. As a Christian, I had a very on-again, off-again relationship with God and Christianity. I would go through long stretches of, I'm trying really hard to believe this, followed by, you know, the preacher would give a really good sermon, or I would go to Bible camp, which I did a couple of times, or I would go to Christian revival, which I went to a couple times, and there would just be this feeling of, a feeling would well up inside me, is the only way I can describe it, like a tightness in my chest. It would be that feeling of my life is about to change, like a feeling of impending change, and a feeling of connectedness and fervor. That feeling would kind of well up inside me, and I would get really excited. And I think God is touching me, God is speaking straight to me, and I would, feel really close to God. And then, a couple hours later, that feeling would fade. Sometimes even a couple days, that feeling would fade, and I would be empty again, and I wouldn't feel anything, and I wouldn't feel God. And that was my entire cycle of belief as a Christian. I tried really, really hard, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't make that feeling last, and I was kind of at the end of my rope. And then one day I was in church with my parents in the adult service, because I really didn't like the kids' service. They were kind of dumb, and none of the kids liked me. But I was in the adult service, and this guy gets on the stage and he says, "For some of you, emotional belief may be enough, but for the rest of you, or for the small minority of you in this church that need something more." I'm teaching a class on Christian apologetics and scientific reasoning for the belief in God. And I'm teaching it on this day, and these days it was like a workshop, like an 8-week series of classes about why you should believe in God from a scientific point of view. He was a religion PhD, religious scholar, and it was perfect for me. I was like, oh man, I really, really have to take this class. It was like a last-ditch effort for me, because if I had not been able to feel an emotional response to God, so I really needed to have some kind of scientific evidence for God, and if I could feel secure in the scientific reasoning behind the belief in God, then I would actually, it would save my faith. And to be honest, instead of turning my faith around, that class was kind of the last nail in the coffin for Christianity for me, because I was 13 when I took this class. I don't think I said that I was 13, which was kind of awkward because everybody else in the class was 40, and I'm sure it was very awkward for them. But I loved the class. I got very into it because I really felt like I was on this search for truth, and I was finally going to find out the truth. And then 6 weeks into the class, and here I was, I thought I was getting the truth. And the guy was quoting The Case Against Christianity by Michael Martin, and using it to debunk the anti or the opposing side to Christianity, and therefore promote his own side. And here I thought I was getting both sides of the argument, and then at the end of the class, he says, he's kind of looking at the book, and he says, "You don't want to read this book by yourself, though. Don't go out and buy this book, because some of the things that he says sound really intelligent, but you need somebody there who can properly interpret them for you." Nobody else in the class seemed to have a problem with this statement, but I got so angry. I couldn't even believe my ears. I was like, are you kidding me? I'm an intelligent human being. I can interpret the facts perfectly fine by myself. I mean, what else is this guy trying to hide from me, that he doesn't want me to read this book on my own? And so I went home and I said, Mom, Mom, I want to buy this book. Will you buy me this book? And my mom is a very nice woman and very, very rational human being. She believes very deeply, but she's a very rational person also. And she's always let me do what I want to do. So she said, sure. So we went to Barnes & Noble, and I got the book. And I also got The Opposing Side, which is The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. And I'll put links to those books in the sidebar. And so I bought both. And then I said to myself, I'm going to read both of these books, and I'm going to find out the truth. And whichever side makes a better argument is the side I'm going to believe, because I need to believe whatever I believe rationally and know it on a rational level, because that's just the kind of person that I am. And I read both books, and to be honest, at 13, some of those arguments really go over your head at 13. But I really liked what Martin said more. Martin made so much more sense to me than Strobel did. And so that was kind of the end of my belief in Christianity. But it was a very slow climb out of that from there. I mean, it wasn't like, I make it sound like it was a rational decision and then it was made and that was it. No. For a long time after that, several months, I thought maybe there is a God, but I'm just incapable of believing in him. Which the obvious conclusion of that would be, I'm going to hell. Like, I actually remember teaching summer Bible school at the church and thinking, I have to save these kids so that they don't end up like me. I really believed that for a while, and until I realized that if there is a loving God, he would not make it impossible for me to love him or know him. That's ridiculous. At that point, I discovered the Church of the Apathetic Agnostic. I'll also put a link to them in that sidebar. But basically their credo is, we don't know and we don't care. And I actually identified with them for a couple of years. I wrote an essay for their student essay competition, and I won $100 in a t-shirt. And that was cool. But, yeah, I did that for a while. Until, I mean, I said I didn't care, but I really did care. I kept reading. I was still kind of fighting the stranglehold of Christianity in little ways. Like, everyone that I knew was a Christian. I kept getting invited by my Christian friends to go to church with them. You know, that kind of thing kept happening. And I was like fighting a specter or something. But anyway, in 12th grade, I kind of went through, 11th and 12th grade, I was kind of going through a goth phase. So I kind of took up Wiccanism, paganism for a little while, until I realized that was just utterly ridiculous. One, I was a terrible pagan, and two, if Christianity is false, then Wicca has to be false, because at least Christianity has some kind of documentable evidence / proof / possibility for existing, whereas Wicca pretty much just made up. So that was the end of that. And kind of at that point, I realized that if I couldn't feel the Christian God, I wasn't going to be feeling any kind of God, because there wasn't, and there were so many better scientific explanations for God than there were for the belief in God. But it was just a much more rational, truthful position to believe that there wasn't a God than to believe that there is, and that was kind of the point that I kind of became an atheist. Anyway, with regards to deconversion, I've been deconverted from Christianity since I was 14. So was that 5 years? And I have been religion-free for about 2. So, that's my story.